don't be afraid to fail and fail often. Okay. And it's okay to fail big and it's okay to fail little. Okay. And because if you do that and you learn from it, you will grow. Okay. Um, and that's it. And that's not my lesson. That's a lesson from a client of mine the same client who teaches entrepreneurship. And I learned that from him. Okay. And I'm very proud of that, is that I pride myself on being coachable. And I learned that from him. People try to be perfectionists and, you know, don't.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, a serial entrepreneur who's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Keith Friedman. And Keith started out his journey in college doing a double major in economics and Japanese. Then graduated and got a job at a Japanese company. And then at that time, it was the late 90s and the internet was changing everything. So moved from the Japanese company over to work for a couple different dotcom businesses. After the crash, worked with, I think, his mother to sell products for those that are hard of hearing. Left that business after his mother and uncle disagreed or parted ways. Went to work for an insurance company and financial business. The last firm he worked for wasn't quite as honorable on his contract. He decided, hey, I've had enough. I'm going to do my own thing. Started his own firm where they focus on being honest and upfront and transparent about drawbacks and limitations of the industry. And I've been doing that ever since, and I've been growing, adding a few people, and continuing on with the business. So, with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Keith.
Thanks, Devin.
Absolutely. So I just took a much longer journey and condensed it into the 30-second version. So let's unpack that a bit. So tell us how your journey got started studying economics and Japanese.
Economics is just something I've always been interested in. Even as a relatively young kid, I even took it in high school. And it was a natural transition to college. I also thought it was a great way to learn how businesses and the overall economy worked. Japanese, I got interested. When I started reading adult books, I took a book off my father's shelf, and it was called Daisho, and just took place in Japan. It was a typical, almost spy novel, and I just liked the parts of Japanese culture that were in it. Eventually read Shogun and those types of books. And during college, I decided to be a Japanese studies major as part of it. I even studied in Japan. Which was probably my favorite part of my education, experiencing another culture, taking deep dives in, and it was great. And I used it to land my first job. Okay. And so it was well worth it. And I still have a fondness for Japanese culture.
Now, was the first job, was it for a Japanese country or company in the US, or were you actually in Japan working for that company, or kind of how did that transition go?
No, I was in New York. I worked for Mitsubishi Corporation, which is a very large Japanese trading company, and I used my economics degree as well. I did analysis. I did mostly sovereign analysis on the U.S. and Latin America. Why they asked me to do Latin America, I have no idea. I can't speak Spanish really, and I had no understanding at the time of the South American economies.
So you worked for a Japanese country or company in the US doing Latin America. So that's an interesting change together.
Yes, that was an interesting change. But my responsibilities covered both North and South America. So monitoring the changes of the US economy was a big part of what I did back then.
Well, fair enough. So now you say, okay, I'm going to go to the, work for the Japanese country or doing Latin America work for a period of time. And then after you worked there for a while, I think you mentioned that the internet came along, started changing things, and that also kind of shifted your trajectory to working for a couple dot-com businesses.
Yes. It was very evident in the research that we were doing that it was technology companies that were changing the US economy. They were driving efficiencies. They were driving growth as well. And I wanted to be a part of it. I even remember during my dot-com days, I had a boss who had a meeting with one of the big consulting companies. And he eventually said to them, wouldn't you rather be doing this than talking about it? And, I had realized that I was talking about it. I wasn't talking about it, I was doing it. And it was great. We always compared those early internet days to um, dog years. One internet year was worth more than a real year in working, because we were doing things that, I don't want to say like we're just cutting edge in terms of technology. We were making up the business models as we went along. Okay. We didn't know what we were doing, and we were just trying so much stuff. And it was great. And it was fun.
No, and I think that is, it's always kind of fun, whether it's cutting edge technology or just new business models or trailblazing to a degree. It always kind of adds that additional layer of excitement. So now you're saying, okay, we're trailblazing, we're doing different things. It's fun and exciting. I'm going to do it rather than just kind of talk about it. You got into it. Now, I think you worked for a couple different dot-com businesses before the dot-com bubble burst.
Yeah. I worked for a couple. One was an e-commerce company, one was a media company, and the last one was a wireless technology company that just didn't make, it. But it was all fun and exciting. It was a great time to do it because I was young. I didn't have a family, so I could dedicate a lot of hours to it. And I made some great friends and bonds during that time, and still talk to a lot of the people that I met in those years.
So now you say, okay, and that I think that sounds like a great experience, and it's always kind of great with if you can find the timing to where, hey, I'm not tied down, so to speak, or I don't have a lot of obligations. I can take a bit more risk, and I can have that experience as well as and be able to go through that. So now as you're working through that, or you've done the working at the different various dot-com businesses. I think as the dot-com bubble burst, and for anybody that remembers that or went through that, a lot of the dot-com, they were the height of evaluations, and then all of a sudden kind of the bottom fell out, and a lot of businesses didn't make it. So as the dot-com bubble burst for you, kind of what was the next stage, or where did you go from there?
Well, my mom had a small company that sold assistive technology to deaf and hard of hearing. And as mothers do, they help their children out when they need help. And I immediately rolled up my sleeves and went to go work for her. Not immediately, I shouldn't say immediately, but I quickly went to go work for her. My job was to take this product, which was an alarm clock that vibrated. Okay, it was very simple. And I took it and marketed it to big box retailers. We got it into Bed Bath and Beyond. We even got it on QVC, loads of different catalogs. And I will tell you, in my career, that was the hardest thing I ever did, because it was a twofold sale. One is we had to sell to the store, and then the product had to perform on the floor, which it frequently didn't, because it was a product that had to be explained, which was something that I learned was a really tough thing to do. It looks like an irregular alarm clock, but you really had to explain it. And that was not something that did well in retail. Now, fast forward to today's time, maybe a product like that might do better, because there's more direct to consumer stuff, and you could build a brand, completely on your own like that. And you don't need tens of millions of dollars. Okay. But we didn't have that back then. The technology and the platforms didn't exist. Facebook didn't exist. Instagram and all these things, and it just wasn't a way to market a product.
Nice. So you did that. Now, one question, just backing up the story just a bit, because you were doing the dot-com businesses, having a blast, dot-com bubble, or I keep saying bubble burst, or if I can say it right.
It did. It burst.
But now as that's going on, what was it more of? Was it your idea to go work for, with your mother's business and help them out and kind of grow? Or was that her idea? Kind of how did you land or kind of make that transition to more of a physical product and getting into different aspects? Was it kind of out of necessity, opportunity? How did that kind of genesis of making that transition go?
It was total necessity. The job market dried up. There were thousands of people looking for a job who had a similar resume that I did. And I just happened to not be at a company that survived the dot-com, the bubble bursting. So it was really out of necessity. And I'm very fortunate that I had that opportunity. I realize a lot of people don't. Okay. And, you know, my parents, my mother specifically, was there for me. I'm sure my father gave me other support at that time. Um, and I was able to build a little something while I was there. But, you know, like a lot of family businesses, she was in business with her brother, and it just wasn't going well. And that was eventually the end of it for me. You know, I just couldn't take the family dynamics, and we weren't generating enough sales to make it, you know, to overcome that.
Oh, and I think that, first of all, I agree. It's nice, sometimes it is great to have family that's there, supportive, or provides an opportunity, especially when through no fault of your own, bottom falls out, industry goes or down significantly, and there are a lot of people that are competing for a small amount of jobs. Sounds like it was a great opportunity. So now you did that and you said, okay, did it for a while, business just, can't support it, the mother and the uncle, or maybe aren't quite getting along or having different visions, and say, okay, as I've now used that as a way that I can overcome the crash and get kind of back on your feet and do that. Then I think from there you decided, okay, leave that business and decided to go to the insurance and financial business.
Sure, we had a family friend who was an insurance and financial advisor, and he asked me to come in and interview. And you know, I did, and eventually passed all the insurance tests and the securities tests, and I got licensed as a traditional financial advisor. Um, you know, I was working for a firm that was captive to one of the big insurance companies. It was a very interesting time for me. In my office, I was able to leaning on my economics degree again, because we were managing money for people and doing financial planning. And my economics degree fit well into that. My Japanese studies, not so much, but you use what you have available. And I was able to talk about the markets in a way that was fairly sophisticated. Um, and while I was there, I was within a year or two, I was recruited to go to a different firm, very similar situation. Someone to take over. The goal was to take over his business. He was an older advisor in his 70s at the time. And once again, it was it was already my second exposure in the industry where people didn't honor what they said they were going to do, even if we had a written agreement between us. Um, so I went to a different captive insurance company. I learned a lot about the industry. But at that moment, I also learned two important things. One is the power of a life insurance product, specifically during a financial crisis. You will find that they stand tall when things get really bad. Now, once again, you have to use the right product. You have to structure it properly, and you have to also understand the carrier that's associated with it, because not all of those things are true for every product in every company. Um, but while I was there, once again, I was recruited to go join another insurance firm, this time a P&C insurance firm, to be their life insurance guy, supposedly. And once again, this is my third stop in the industry, and they didn't honor their contract with me. And I found that incredibly frustrating. And it's one reason why the industry has such a bad reputation. On top of the way many firms and people treat their clients. Okay. You and I have talked, and you know that I have this strong drive to deliver an ethical solution to my clients. And part of that came from the fact that people didn't treat me ethically along the way. Okay. And if we can't treat each other ethically and we can't treat our clients ethically, we're just the worst. Okay. And it is a race to the bottom for sales. Um, and I decided at that point that I was going to start my own firm, and I was going to do it in a way that I could sleep easily at night, and I knew I'd be doing the right thing for my clients. And most of my clients are people that I have a close personal relationship with. Okay. They might see me in the community, they might have known me for many years. And I want to always be able to look them in the face and said, I did the right thing for you. And that was important. So when I built my own firm, we built it on being ethical. And we define that in a couple of ways. One is we are going to take a fiduciary standard in working with our clients. That we still accept commissions, But one, we're independent with the carriers. We have no direct carrier relationship. And then two, we are transparent about our commissions. We will actually disclose our full compensation to the client. And lastly, our advice is based on analytics. It's not based on a sales system. It's not based on anything else. It's based on mostly math, going back to leaning on my economics degree. You know,
And I think
and
that, oh, go ahead.
no, and I feel very proud of that.
No, and I think that, there's a lot to that. And it's interesting because, as many times as I've talked with people in a lot of different industries and a lot of different paths, there are some commonalities because, your journey and what you're sharing is a bit the same as the path that I took, in the sense that now I'm in the legal industry, but there are things within the legal industry that I didn't like. Sometimes price transparency. Everybody it always is kind of, well, it's going to cost you somewhere between this range and this range. And inevitably it's always even more expensive than the range they give you. And they give all, or attorneys give all the reasons, and you never know what the price is. And then, there's always that conflict with attorneys as far as, hey, the more I tell you to keep doing, or, keep arguing and fighting on this matter rather than resolving it, the more I get a bill, which again is kind of has that conflict. And can't remove all of them, but I think that having that transparency and saying this is what it's going to cost, this is why, where that their attention lies and where that conflict might, and at least letting them know so that then they can make a better or informed decision, I think definitely is a great way to conduct business, and oftentimes moves you to doing your own thing because you don't fit within the normal model.
Right. If I tried to go to a big firm and do what I do, they would say no. We were talking to another financial advisor last week, and it's like, oh, we recommended an insurance product to a client, and we were choosing between carrier A and carrier B. And I don't know if he realized that there are about 3 or 4 other carriers that offered a similar product, but he could only offer carrier A and carrier B because that's what the structure he was involved in dictated. And yes, there was a choice, but one of those other 4 carriers might have been a better solution for his client. So even though this guy is an excellent advisor and really has his client's interest at heart, is he truly taking a fiduciary duty and working with his clients? I would argue no. I mean, it's really no for no fault of his own, okay? But,
No, but nonetheless, it's the client. A lot of times the client isn't even aware of it because they say, hey, we review things. Here's a couple good options that we think you should go with. When in reality, there may be other options that are less expensive, better coverage, anything else, but they're not going to promote those, and understanding why. In other words, they can't sell them. They may be contractually obligated, or they may not get a commission on them, any number of reasons, but now they're simply stuck with, we can only offer so many options, and half the time the clients don't even know. So I think that there is, hey, these are the ones that we are able to offer. Just so you know, there may be other ones out there that may be beneficial. We're not able to offer them, but if you're interested in those, we can refer you over to or connect you up with those that can offer. And I think that gives, and a lot of times I think that when you're that transparent with clients, it often opens the door to, hey, I appreciate the honesty and letting me know, and I'd still like to go with you, but thanks for letting me know, and in those type of things. And oftentimes they're more grateful than otherwise come to find out that they weren't aware of those options. One of them was better. They find out from someone else, so they have someone else quote it, and now you look like you weren't giving them the best representation or meeting your duties. So I think that that's a great model, but I think it is one where you have to go your own path in order to offer it. So, well, now is that kind of, that's where you're at today. Now looking at your business and kind of where you guys are at, looking at a bit into the next 6 to 12 months. I know when we talked a little bit before, you guys are a bit growing, bringing on some new team members, but where do you see kind of the next 6 to 12 months going for you guys?
So the industry's changed a little bit, and unfortunately, we're going to have to get securities license again. Okay, so that's a new thing for us, and we're not going to do it to necessarily offer investments. We don't really want to manage a client's money, but the life insurance products have changed, and the variable products that are out there have some better features that we think our clients are going to want and need, and we are going to pursue being able to offer those to our clients. And then we've had the other 2 new things for our clients is where we see growth is clients have asked us to take on the role of helping them with their retirement planning. This is something that we haven't typically done in a full-blown way. And once again, we don't intend on managing clients' money, okay? We can farm that out to somebody else, or they can go to a low-cost provider like Fidelity or Vanguard or Charles Schwab any of the, any of those large players, because the function of managing money rarely provides better returns to your clients. Advisors tend to provide better returns by offering better advice. Okay, what structures to use, where to put the money, things like that. So we are developing a proprietary retirement planning strategy, and it is highlighting the use of insurance products to what we call harden someone's portfolio. This way, when someone runs a typical Monte Carlo simulator on their assets, they might have a good outcome on a Monte Carlo might be a 95% probability of a plan working. Well, this is a little salesy, but would you get on a plane that has a 95% probability of getting there? And we'd probably say no. Okay, I can't imagine anybody getting on a plane and saying that there's a 5% probability it's not going to get there.
Unless I'm really need to get out of wherever I'm at. That 5%
Right.
is worth it out of the country, but
Right.
most of the time you're right. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So we can prove by adding insurance products properly, we can improve those probabilities and actually increase outcomes. Increase income and improve probabilities that it's going to work. And there are studies by Ernst & Young that show this. There's a researcher named Wade Pfau and Mr. Finke, Dr. Finke, who talk about this and have done extensive research on it. So we're going to be adding that feature. And the other thing that we're doing is we've had a couple of clients come to us to ask to help build a multifamily office for them. And once again, we are not building a multifamily office the way most firms are. We have no interest in managing clients' money. We will farm that out for our clients if they want that service. Okay, but it will be taking a deep dive into their planning, into their budgeting, and how they run their lives. Okay, so we can provide real benefits to them, whether it's in reducing the drag on their assets by interest charges or finding a better structure to be able to use for their company or their home, making sure all their bills are paid. Our target client for this is, the entrepreneur, okay? And this came to us because a client of ours who teaches entrepreneurship asked us to do this, okay, for him and a few of his clients. And that's been really exciting to do. It's called FBO Family Offices, so FBOFO. It's exciting. And that's where our growth is really going to go. We are still looking to partner with other financial advisors for all three of these levels of services, or really just two of them. No, actually all three. Okay. We've talked to all sorts of different folks and are excited about where it's going.
Well, it sounds like a lot of opportunity and a lot of things to come. And I think that sounds like it'll be an exciting path for you guys going forward, as well as where you're already at today. So with that, now as we catch up to where you're at present day and even looking into a bit into the future, it's a great time in the journey to ask the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode, which are, the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
The worst business decision I ever made was joining the last firm that I was a part of. Okay. And it totally derailed what I was doing. And I worked with people who were not honorable about their word. And that was hurtful to me. Okay. Because I am in an industry that I can't place a different product than somebody else. Okay. In the life insurance space, almost all the products are off the shelf. So the difference that I have to offer is my integrity and my word and our analysis that we do. It's not the product. So in working with people who weren't truthful to their word, that was hard for me. Okay. But it taught me to really not treat people that way. And the relationships I have developed since then have been some of the best. Okay. I have people that have worked with me for years now, which is, a testament to them that they could put up with me, because like any boss, I could be difficult at times, and I'm sure my wife would say the same thing, but she's the boss. Um, I'm probably a terrible employee in that respect. Um, and, you know, I want everyone to feel a part of the team, you know, and that's what I learned is that it was almost how not to do something. And I think my longevity since then has proven that what I'm doing is working. Okay. I don't think I've solved it, but it's working.
No, and I don't think that for almost all these type of problems, there is not a solution. There's improvements.
Right.
There's always areas to continue to iterate, pivot, and improve and whatnot. And so you're always working to solve it, and you're probably never going to reach it. And that's part of the game that you play. But I think that definitely, learning from that. And there are those. Everybody thinks so. When I sign a contract, everybody's going to be honorable and everybody's going to fall through. And most of the time, parties do. But there are some that just no matter how honorable you are, they don't always have that same level of honor. And it's just one where you have to
Right.
deal with it and you have to learn from it and say, okay, I won't make that mistake again. I'll either cover myself with a better contract, or I'll go do my own thing, or I'll vet them and make sure that they're
And,
honorable parties. And
and
sometimes you just have to deal with it.
I don't want you to think like they were malicious towards me. They certainly weren't. They were certainly
Yeah.
nice people.
Mm,
Um, it was just like, I think they were more oblivious to it.
mm.
Is they ran their business their way and they wanted that. And, that wasn't the agreement we had. And they were just kind of oblivious. I feel like they were just kind of oblivious for it. They weren't malicious about it. They weren't mean or angry or anything like that, or punitive. Okay. It was just not the relationship I signed up for.
No, I think
And
that,
and that's
I
okay.
think that is fair to them as well. And sometimes, if I were to play devil's advocate on their side, sometimes they go into it with one idea, or they do on
Right.
or have a good intent, and then they get into it, things change, they find out more about themselves or the firm or
Right.
anything, any number of reasons, and it no longer fits. And then they're stuck between, hey, yes, this is
Right.
what we originally said, but it may not be where we're at now, and it can create those tensions. So
Right.
I think that's some
And
great, well, go ahead.
right. And I say, I've had a couple of times where people have, I don't know, didn't do great things to me, and I've saved some of those things, whether it's the contract with the previous firm or some emails I received from some former bosses. And I save those things. And I save those things to remind me why I do the things the way I do them now. Okay.
Mhm.
And the way I treat my partners, the way I treat my clients. And I think about those things frequently. Um, and I feel we've built a better mousetrap. Okay. Or at least a nicer mousetrap. Okay. You know, I don't think anybody wants a mouse in their house, though.
I don't know, say, I don't know if mice traps can be nice, but at least it's
I
better.
know.
So no, I think that's great. So now with that, second question I always ask is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Don't be afraid to fail and fail often. Okay. And it's okay to fail big and it's okay to fail little. Okay. And because if you do that and you learn from it, you will grow. Okay. Um, and that's it. And that's not my lesson. That's a lesson from a client of mine the same client who teaches entrepreneurship. And I learned that from him. Okay. And I'm very proud of that, is that I pride myself on being coachable. And I learned that from him. People try to be perfectionists and, you know, don't
No, and I
be
think that
afraid.
there's absolutely, and I think people or sometimes get in the trap of, hey, I've got to be what it's like on TV or the movies or the book, and I can't fail and I can't make mistakes because that will indicate that I'm not doing it right. And they have something that's in their mind that there can never be a failure, and yet you take even some of the biggest companies and they've had failures, they've had things that they've had to deal with. Some of them have gone under, some of them have done great, and there's always that overcoming that fear of failure is oftentimes distinguishing, because it's not, almost everybody is going to have, whether it's a big failure, as you mentioned, or a little failure, you're going to have those failures and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with them. And if you can't, you're not going to make it as a startup or a small business, because it's going to happen. So I think that's a great takeaway.
Right. And the other thing is, don't take no's personally. It's rarely about you. It's normally about them.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
When I first got into this industry, it was gut-wrenching when someone would say no to me. But it turns out it wasn't really about me, it was about them. That's okay. And even if it wasn't, there have been a couple times that it has been about me, that I have completely screwed up. And then it goes back to my, understanding of failure, learning from that, and going forward. So I love being a business owner. I love being able to build something. I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely.
And I will say this about about what we do. It is very easy to say what we do, like we are an ethical firm and we do all these things for our clients. It's hard to prove. Okay. Like it's, our proudest moments have been when we've said to a client, you know what, you're great. And it's happened it doesn't happen often, but it's happened a few times. And we've developed long, deep relationships as a result of that with those people. And they've come back to us. Some of them have come back to us later, hey, things have changed. We got to redo this. And that's great. But we work hard every day to find the best solutions for our clients, to put their needs first and deliver it to them. And, we're always thinking about how we can do it better.
No, I think that's definitely a great takeaway and a lot of great pieces of advice. So with that, now as we're wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, or find out more?
Sure. Our firm name is FBO Strategies LLC, which is, right above my shoulder. My email, I'm going to give you a shorter email. It's for our family office business that we just launched. It's keith@fbofo.com. And my mobile number is 212-380-8676. And for those in the New York metro area, yes, I do have a 212 mobile number, and I know that's really rare. I plan on giving it to one of my children when I pass, whichever one I like the best at the time. I'm just kidding. But it is a rare thing to have, and I will cherish that phone number forever.
Awesome. Well, that's great. A lot of great ways to connect up with you, and even something that you can pass on from generation to generation. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So let's go to inventiveguest.com. Glad to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, because we want to make sure that everyone finds out about all these awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Keith, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. You too.